From the outside, it's a rusted box truck sitting in a gravel lot off Lamar Avenue in Memphis. Faded paint, flat front tire, the kind of thing your eyes slide right past. Inside, where I'm sitting right now, the light is on, the air is cool. The kettle on the little burner is still warm. It is 94 degrees outside today. In here it's 78. And I spent under $300 making it that way. Here's the part the title promised you. Almost every trick I use to make this box livable is technically against the law. Not because it's dangerous, because of zoning, because of occupancy codes, because a city would rather a space sit empty and rot than let a person quietly live in it for free. That's the whole game. The tricks aren't banned because they don't work. They're banned because they work too well and nobody's collecting rent. I lived in this truck for 2 years. People walk past that door every single day. Delivery drivers, dog walkers, a code officer once who looked right at it and kept going. Not one of them ever guessed somebody was living in there comfortably. And none of this was luck. None of it was me getting lucky once and bragging about it. It's a system, a real one, built on real physics, refined by people living the exact same way I was, passed hand to hand because there was nowhere else to learn it. The single part that keeps this whole place cool in a Memphis summer cost me less than the price of 2 fast food meals. I'll show you exactly what it is. But only after you understand the mistake that almost cooked me alive my first July in here, because that mistake is the reason most people quit. And if you think this has nothing to do with you, stay with me anyway, because the same trick that keeps a metal box bearable in 94-degree heat is the exact thing that would keep your own house livable if the power grid went down for a week. Which, where I'm standing, it does more often than anybody likes to admit. Let me back up to how I even ended up looking at a dead box truck like it was a house. I wasn't always like this. I had a lease. A normal 1-bedroom on the north side, 400 square feet, $810 a month. Then the building sold. The new owner wanted $1,200. I did the math on my paycheck and the math said no. Here's something most people don't know until it's them. In a lot of American cities right now, the waiting list for subsidized housing isn't months. It's years. In some places, 4, 5, 6 years. I put my name on a list and the woman behind the glass told me kindly not to hold my breath. She wasn't being cruel, she was being honest. So I had a choice. Wait years for a door I might never get, or stop waiting and build my own. I found the truck through a guy at a parts yard. It was a dead 16-foot box truck, engine seized, not worth fixing. He'd been paying to store it. He practically thanked me for taking it. $200 in a handshake, and the title was mine, sitting on a lot owned by a friend of a friend who didn't ask questions as long as it looked abandoned. And that's the first thing the codes don't like. A box truck is a vehicle, not a dwelling. The second you sleep in it, in most cities you've broken an ordinance. Not a safety law, a paperwork law. The city has decided that the cheapest, most available shelter in America, a metal box on wheels, is illegal to actually use as shelter. That's the antagonist in this whole story. Not the heat, not the cold. The rule that says a working roof doesn't count unless somebody approved it and somebody's profiting from it. The first night I slept in that truck, I lay on a salvage mattress and listened to the steel walls tick as they cooled in the dark. No insulation yet. No system. Just me in a box. And I remember thinking, this thing holds heat like an oven and bleeds it like a sieve. If I'm going to live here, physics is the only landlord I have to satisfy. So I learned the physics. That's where everything turned. Let me tell you about the mistake first, because I promised my first instinct was the wrong one, and it's almost everybody's wrong instinct. I thought, seal it up tight, stop the air from moving, make it a sealed box. So I taped every gap, foamed every seam, closed it down like a cooler. That first real July day, the inside of that sealed truck hit 112 degrees by 3 in the afternoon. I came back from a day of work and opening that door was like opening a kiln. The heat had nowhere to go. I trapped it. A sealed metal box in direct sun isn't a home. It's a slow oven, and people have died that way in cars and trucks every single summer. That mistake teaches you fast, and it teaches you once. Because the answer to heat isn't sealing. It's moving air and blocking sun. Two things, both nearly free, both things the off-grid world has known for 100 years and the modern grid made everybody forget. Here's what I did instead, and here's why it works. Heat comes into a metal box 3 ways. Straight sunlight cooking the steel, hot outside air leaking in, and your own body and gear giving off warmth with nowhere to vent. Beat all 3 and the box behaves. First, sun. I never let direct sunlight touch the metal again. I built a simple shade gap, a second skin over the roof, and the sunny side, scrap plywood, and a roll of reflective bubble foil held off the surface of the truck by about 2 inches of air. That 2-inch air gap is the whole trick. The sun heats the outer layer, but the gap of air between it and the truck won't carry that heat across efficiently. The reflective foil bounces most of the radiant heat back before it ever reaches the steel. That roll of foil cost me around $30. It dropped the surface temperature of the roof so much I could lay my palm flat on the inside of the ceiling at noon. Second, the walls. Inside, I lined everything with salvaged rigid foam board I pulled from a construction dumpster, the pink and blue stuff. The panels they throw away as offcuts by the truckload. 2 inches of that foam gives you roughly an R value of 10. Stack it where I could and you climb higher. R value is just a measure of how hard heat has to work to get through a material. A bare steel wall is basically 0. 2 inches of salvage foam turns that wall from a frying pan into a cooler lid, and it cost me nothing but the time to go get it. Third, and this is the one nobody does right, you have to let the hot air leave. Up high. I'll come back to exactly how, because that's the cheap part I promised you, and it deserves its own moment. But the lesson of that block is this. The expensive world wants you to believe comfort comes from a machine, a big air conditioner pulling thousands of watts off a grid. It doesn't. Comfort comes from geometry, from shade, from a barrier, from air that's allowed to move. The machine is just what we bought to replace the knowledge. Now, sealing the box solved the sun, but it created a new problem, and this one nearly broke me in the other direction. Because once I had this thing insulated tight enough to hold a temperature, I still needed power, light at night, a fan to move that air, a way to charge a phone so I could still work, still exist as a person with a number and an email, and the truck was dead. No engine, no alternator, no grid hookup. Plugging into anything would have meant running a cord to a building, and that cord is the fastest way to get noticed and get evicted from a spot. So I had to make my own electricity, quietly, cheaply. And this is where people massively overcomplicate things and talk themselves out of it. I bought a secondhand portable power station, not a fancy new one. A used one, the kind people buy for camping and sell when they upgrade. Mine was a 500 watt hour unit, and I paid a little over $100 for it used. Let me tell you what 500 watt hours actually runs, because the number sounds small until you understand it. A watt hour is 1 watt drawn for 1 hour. A good 12 volt fan pulls maybe 2 or 3 watts. A bright string of LED lights, another 5 or 6. Charging a phone, around 10 watt hours for a full charge. Do the arithmetic. That little used battery ran my lights all evening, a fan all night, and charged my phone twice over and still had margin left in the morning. The machine, the grid sells you to do the same job, pulls more power in 1 hour, running an air conditioner than my whole home used in 3 days. To fill it back up, 1 folding solar panel, 100 watts, bought used. On a Memphis summer day, that panel puts the battery back to full in a few hours of sun, sitting in the windshield where nobody looks twice at a sunshade. The whole electrical heart of my home battery and panel came in under $200, and it never sent me a bill, never asked for a deposit, never needed an account and a name and an address I didn't have. That's the part the utility model makes you forget. You don't need a power plant. For light, air, and a phone, you need about as much electricity as a couple light bulbs. We just got trained to rent it by the month. But the battery solved power. It did not solve water. And water is the thing that humbles everybody who tries this, including me. Now, if you are watching this thinking it could never be you, stay with me. Because the part that matters most to you is the one I would reach for if you ever woke up to a dead grid, a rent hike you could not cover, or the simple wish to own a place outright. Here's the scenario nobody plans for. The power goes out across your whole city. Not for an hour, for a week. An ice storm, a heat dome that overloads the grid, a hurricane that takes the lines down. It happens somewhere in this country every single year now, and the second it does, your expensive grid-tied house becomes the dead box truck. No light, no fan, no way to charge the phone. You need to reach anybody. The thing that saved me is the exact thing that would save you. And you don't need any of my skills to set it up. 1 used portable power station, 1 folding solar panel. That's it. Charged and sitting in a closet, that pair will run a few lights, charge every phone in your house, and keep a fan or a small medical device alive for days. Through a multi-day blackout, while the whole street sits dark, you'd have a lit room and a charged phone recharging off the sun on your own porch every afternoon. People spend thousands on a whole house generator that needs fuel you can't get when the storm hits the gas stations too. I'm telling you, the version that costs a couple $100, makes no noise, needs no fuel, and recharges itself from the sky. I lived on it for 2 years. It's not a downgrade. For keeping the essentials of life running when the grid fails, it's better. And the cooling trick, the shade gap, the air that's allowed to move up and out, works in a real house too. When your AC dies in a heat wave, shading your windows from the outside and venting the hot air out of the highest point of the house will drop your indoor temperature more than people believe. Our great-grandparents cooled whole homes this way before electricity was something you could rent. The knowledge didn't stop being true. We just stopped needing it until the moment we need it badly. That's the bridge. The same engineering that made a dead truck livable for nothing is the engineering that keeps your family safe when the modern stuff quits. There was never poverty knowledge. It's just knowledge. The grid made us forget it, and forgetting it is the most expensive thing most people will ever do. Now let me give you the water, because I promised honesty about what humbled me. You can't catch enough drinking water off a 16-foot truck roof to live on. I'm not going to pretend you can. What I could do is catch enough for washing, cleaning, and the small stuff, and that took enormous pressure off the water I had to carry in. Here's the number that surprised me, and it'll surprise you. For every inch of rain that falls on 1 square foot of roof, you get about 0.6 of a gallon of water. My truck roof was around 120 square feet. Memphis gets over 50 inches of rain a year. Run that math, and a single decent rainstorm, even half an inch, put close to 35 gallons into my catchment off that little roof. I ran a gutter lip along one edge into a food-grade barrel I got free from a car wash. Gravity did the rest. No pump, no power. Water that fell out of the sky for free that the city would otherwise charge me for, sitting in a barrel doing my washing. That's the thing about all of this. The resources are everywhere. Sun on the roof, rain on the roof, air that wants to move if you let it. We've just been trained to buy all three back from somebody after they've been metered. Okay? The cheap part I've been holding, the thing that ties the whole climate system together, the under $30 trick that does more than any machine I could have bought. I learned it from a man I never got a last name for. He'd been living rough far longer than me in a converted cargo trailer 2 lots over, and he watched me struggle through that first oven of a July. One evening he walked over, looked at my sealed up box and said one thing: "You're trapping it at the top. Heat climbs. You have to give it a door up high and a door down low." That's the stack effect. And it is the closest thing to free air conditioning that exists. Hot air rises, always. In a sealed box, it just pulls against the ceiling and bakes you. But if you cut a vent at the very highest point and another at the very lowest point, the rising hot air escapes through the top, and as it leaves, it pulls cooler air in through the bottom. The whole box becomes a chimney. The air moves on its own, with no fan, no power, no moving parts, just because hot air wants to go up and physics won't let it stay. I built it for almost nothing. A small powered roof vent at the peak, a low intake near the floor on the shady side, a piece of damp burlap over that low intake. As the breeze pulled in across the wet burlap, the water evaporating off it stole heat out of the incoming air, real evaporative cooling. The same reason sweat cools your skin, the same reason a clay pot keeps water cold in the desert. Dry Memphis evenings, that damp burlap intake dropped the incoming air several degrees before it ever reached me. The vent hardware, the burlap, the bit of tubing to keep it damp, all of it together came in under $30. That's the part that keeps this whole place cool. Not a compressor, not a grid. A hole at the top, a hole at the bottom, and a wet rag. Knowledge that homesteaders and desert builders have used for centuries, that a man living in a cargo trailer handed me for free, that I'm now handing to you. And here's why it's banned. There's no code violation in a vent and a wet cloth. What's against the rules is the part where it lets a person live, well, in a space the city says no one is allowed to live in. The cooling isn't illegal, the independence is, because a person who can keep himself cool, lit, and watered for $300 is a person who is very hard to charge $1,400 a month. That's the whole secret. None of these tricks are dangerous. They're just inconvenient to the people who sell you the expensive version. So here's what I want you to take from a guy who turned a dead truck into a home cooler than the apartment that priced him out. A working roof was never supposed to cost a fortune. Light, cool air, water, a warm kettle. These come from sun, rain, moving air, and a little knowledge. And 3 of those 4 fall on you for free. We were taught to rent all of it back. I just stopped. If you're the kind of person who believes the most useful knowledge is the kind nobody teaches you in a classroom, the kind that suddenly matters the night the power dies, then you already understand why I built this and why I'm telling you, especially with where rent and power bills are heading. So let me ask you straight. Of everything I built, the shade gap, the salvaged foam, the used battery and panel, the rain barrel, or that $30 stack vent with the wet burlap, which one would you set up first if you had a single weekend and $100? Tell me in the comments. I read them and I answer. And if you want to know the part I get asked about most, how I actually found a dead box truck in a quiet lot to put it on for $200, without anyone asking questions, that's the next thing I'm going to walk you through. Stick around for it, because finding the space is the part everyone thinks is impossible, and it's the part that's hiding in plain sight in every city in America. You don't have to believe a decent place to live has to cost a fortune. I'm sitting in the proof that it doesn't.